This is the Marketing Boss Podcast, where today's top marketing professionals reveal their best tips, tools, and strategies, and we all become better leaders because of it. And here's your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton.
Hey, you guys, welcome back. It's another episode of the Marketing Boss Podcast. I'm Parshell Houghton, your host for the day. Thank you for being here with me. I love what we're doing here on the podcast and being able to meet really, really interesting guests. One in particular today, her name is Cangie. She's from a company called JHANA, and I'm really pumped because we're going to be talking about how we can align marketing with sales, right? Robin, in all of her experience, has had some good experiences and bad, which I'm excited to hear about. So Robin, actually, to give you guys some background on her, she leads the marketing team at JHANA, which is an online resource for managers, and she's worked with B2B and SaaS marketing for a decade. She believes that good marketing should educate, inspire, and transform, and then that data should only ever be used for good. She's earned a BA in History Philosophy from Linfield College, and she's a proud Pacific Northwest native who enjoys traveling, writing, and great conversation. Robin, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to marketing.
Absolutely. Before we jump into this interesting conversation, I want to thank those who have connected with us so far on social media. If you'd like to connect, you can find me, Parshell Houghton, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Also, be sure to join our private LinkedIn group called the Marketing Boss Club. That's where marketing professionals like you and me can collaborate and grow together. Again, jump on LinkedIn in the private group called the Marketing Boss Club. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Robin. So, Robin, just to start off, tell us a little bit about how you got started in marketing. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Truth be told, I fell into marketing completely by accident. The short version of the story is that after I graduated from college, I met a guy who happens to live in Portland, Oregon, and after a month-long whirlwind romance, I decided to move to Portland to be with him. And when I got there, I needed a job, and one of the very first jobs I could find happens to be a contract marketing role at a tech company in downtown Portland called WebTrends. Fortunately, it worked out well. That guy is now my husband, and that also launched my marketing career completely unexpectedly. As I started doing the work, it turned out I kind of liked it, so I was like, all right, well, I'll stay and see what happens. 10 years later, here we are.
Wow, I love that. I mean, it's funny because you have a degree in history and philosophy, and I have a degree in math. Like, how in the world are we in this world of marketing? It's so funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hiring people who don't have marketing degrees. They usually have no offense to those who do, but I find that they often have very interesting stories and perspectives. Yeah,
totally. I think, being able to bring in, other experiences and ways of thought really helps with that experience. So that's a good point. So actually, you're at JHANA now, so tell us a little bit about that and your role there.
Sure. So I've been with JHANA for almost 3 years now. I was the company's very first marketing hire, and I now oversee a team of one demand generation person and a couple of PR consultants, a small army of contractors, and our whole mission is to give everyone the great manager that they deserve. So we're an online resource. We have bite-sized articles, videos, worksheets, and tools to help managers learn really foundational but often overlooked skills like how to have a good one-on-one, how to coach your team, and how to just be a more effective leader in general.
Gotcha. So you guys are thought leaders, and you're using a lot of content to do what you're doing, it sounds.
Yes, we have a pretty robust content and research team in-house who develops all of our content. We draw from existing scholars out there, but what really makes us unique is that we also conduct a lot of interviews with experienced managers and do our own research with our learner base of managers. So we have a really great insight into what they really want and need, and then combine that with the academic perspective.
Gotcha. Now, in particular, when it comes to your sales and then with your marketing, I've heard different people just say that they're not separate, like that they're actually the same. How do you see marketing and sales? Do you see it as a unit, or that they are in fact two separate entities?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I think I'm going to fall back on JHANA's management philosophy here, which we love to say in response to tough questions. Well, it's complicated and it depends. But I would say in general, it's a little bit of both, right? My head of sales and we definitely do see ourselves as part of one team working toward one goal. But we also recognize that there are certain aspects where we overlap more and certain aspects where we overlap less. On the lead generation side, for example, of course, our lead generation manager and the head of our SDR team work very, very closely together. They have a shared goal and shared objectives. But when it comes to things like branding and PR, that's where it can get a little bit more separate, or I'm not stepping in to help close the deal directly or joining sales calls. That doesn't really make sense for the kind of work that we do. So we definitely have separate areas of expertise and responsibility, but we do view ourselves as part of a shared team with a shared mission.
Gotcha. And I know that before we jumped into the call, you mentioned that there were some bad experiences that you've had, and then, of course, some successes that you're seeing at JHANA now. So tell us a little bit, I guess, of one of the bad cases that happened, because it's just, I think that coming with that perspective is just so helpful, just to see how other people have done things differently or whatever the case is. So we'd love to hear one of the stories there about an experience that wasn't so great.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll try to share this without getting too in the weeds. I mean, all the people I've worked with have been great, and I definitely don't want to point fingers. But I think where things tend to break down, I guess I've seen a few things happen. I worked at a company that was really struggling to meet its overall numbers. And this was during the financial crisis, so a lot of us were in this boat. It wasn't, a unique thing by any stretch. But I definitely saw that as things got, as business slowed and as things in general started to feel tense, people tended to retreat into their own departmental identities. And what I saw happen was a lot of finger pointing. Marketing or sales would say, marketing's not giving us enough leads. And marketing would say, we're giving you plenty of leads. You're not following up on them. And communication really broke down because people weren't able to step outside of their own departmental perspective and see things from the other person's point of view, or even be willing to recognize that maybe there's some shared culpability here. Maybe marketing isn't doing all that it can to deliver leads and enable sales. And maybe on the flip side, sales also, could be working a little bit harder to follow up. That's one example that comes to mind. It's something I've actually seen it play out at a few different companies that I've worked for. And I think it's when these departmental identities start to get in the way of shared goals and missions, which is something that we're doing quite well at JHANA, and why part of my response to your earlier question was that the head of sales and I really do see ourselves as part of one team, and why we organize goals so that they are not department specific, but rather shared across departments. I guess that was kind of a long, rambling response, but does that answer your question? I guess specific enough for you?
Yeah, that was fine. I mean, I think that is sometimes the case. I hear it from both, actual people who are head of marketing departments as well as, marketing agencies. For example, one marketing agency I know, he was feeding this particular company so many leads, and then of course they're looking back at reports and the numbers and finding that the conversion rates were so low, and once they investigated, it did seem that it was on the fault of the the person who was picking up the phone. So I think that there is of course shared responsibility, but as you're saying, when you combine and everybody is organized and seeing the same goal, it just makes a huge difference overall. Yeah,
I'll add to that, that technology is critically important and often an overlooked cause of strife between sales and marketing as well. Not just making sure that things are, getting tracked correctly, but so I recall one instance where I worked at a company and marketing was sending over a tremendous number of leads to the sales team, and the sales team kept saying, we're not seeing any leads. And, from our marketing perspective, we kind of rolled our eyes and thought, those whiny salespeople, they're just being entitled. Months, I kid you not, months later, we discovered that due to a faulty integration between our marketing automation tool and our CRM, our leads were literally not getting passed over into Salesforce.
Oh my gosh.
And no one realized this for months and months and months. So we spent all this money and generated all these leads and, created all this tension between sales and marketing with these conflicting stories. And it turns out the issue was technology all along.
That's interesting. We actually had on a previous episode that we did, I'll include it in the show notes, we actually discussed the fact that from the technology standpoint, we're really only utilizing a certain percentage of it. So if you invest in a program, she said that, on average, like 20% of the capability that particular software has is being utilized. And so it's so interesting from the tech perspective that either it's not being used or there's some, glitch sometimes or something that's not at its best or being utilized the best way it could be.
Yeah, I would say that is why you need a dedicated ops person.
That is true. That is so true. Just to make sure everything is just, the wheels are still going. So you've mentioned as well that you guys have definitely had some successes at JHANA, which is why, we definitely thought to invite you to be on the podcast today. So could you share a little bit of the great things that are happening with JHANA and the way that you guys are organized?
Sure. So let's see. I have to give a lot of credit, first of all, to our VP of Sales. She is awesome. And she joined the company as an account executive just a month before I joined the company as a marketing manager. So we've grown up in JHANA together and have seen it grow together, which has definitely helped a lot. And I know that not all marketers are lucky enough to be in that kind of a situation. So I just want to put that out there. Really, so much of our relationship is due to her being, really seeing the value of marketing and us being able to build a lot of trust together and having similar personalities and goals. But in terms of things we've done that I think other companies can replicate, even if you're dealing with a less than ideal situation with sales and marketing, which is so often the case, I think really setting up shared goals is one of the most powerful things that we've been able to do. And it's not just that marketing has some skin in the game now. I mean, that's important. But what it really does is help break down these department-specific identities. So, with the meeting, so for our business development team, for example, we have a meeting goal. The business development reps have to set up a certain number of discovery meetings in a given month. And when we started involving marketing more in the lead generation process, we looked at our meeting goal and we decided that rather than try to set a goal for marketing and a goal for business development, we were going to have one number. And everyone was going to be working hard to meet that one number. And that has really created this wonderful partnership between the business development manager and marketing, because we both feel like we own this together. And no one, by having a single number, no one is allowed to say, marketing, you missed your number, so it's your fault. Or BD, you missed your number, so it's your fault. Instead, it's all one number. We sink or swim together. Another thing that we've done is we've created something called a sales headquarters, or sales HQ. And one of the challenges that I have faced a lot and that I hear a lot is that sales doesn't always know what marketing is up to. They don't know where to access marketing materials, or they see it in an email, they download it once, and then they use the same outdated PowerPoint presentation for 2 years. So what we've done is I created a simple landing page. I just used Unbounce. And created a landing page that links to every document that sales could possibly need. There are some recorded discovery calls in there for new account executives to train. There are all of our one-pagers and data sheets, our most important marketing content, a bunch of training and onboarding materials, everything in one place. It's always up to date. It links to secure Google Drive files, so no one could ever find the link access our secure stuff if they happen to stumble upon it on the web. It's not indexed for search engines, and it's like our hub. So that has done a tremendous amount to help the sales team see all of the work that marketing is doing to support them, and also eliminate a lot of confusion on their part as to, what is the most recent version of our positioning? Where do I find our most recent one-pager? It's been incredibly helpful, and it's very easy to maintain.
That's awesome. And with that, because all I see is just, what I hear rather is just unity. Like everybody's going for the same number, going to the same place to get their resources, information, and everybody can see, truly the work on both sides, and all the different people coming together. And I'm pretty sure that makes for a great company culture that you guys are building there too.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It would be a lot harder to do this in a company culture that was broadly siloed. So the kind of interdepartmental and cross-departmental collaboration I'm describing is not unique to sales and marketing at JHANA. It's something that we've really made a concerted long-term effort to achieve across every single department. I don't work as closely with our customer success and product teams, for example, but we have that same kind of mentality where we actually, we're trying something which is pretty cool for 2017, where how do I describe this? We're thinking about some of our big objectives, like military operations, so we have our department structures. We've got the head of marketing, the head of sales, and people who report up into us. But one of our operations is called Operation Revenue, and for that project, we have a project lead who happens to be the head of sales, and a whole project hierarchy within it. So each of us has a part to play, and the goals are operation specific as opposed to department specific. So simply organizing work in that way has helped a lot to break people out of their department mindsets and organize them towards common company goals. So then it also helps eliminate the problem of having department goals that conflict with one another, which is something that I've encountered.
Right. Well, tell me, because I know that people who are listening, they either oversee departments kind of like you, or, they have their own agencies where they are, of course, in communication with the client for, making sure they're getting what they need and that they're converting. I know that what you just described is specific to JHANA, but is there any advice or direction that you can provide to listeners on how they can essentially achieve something similar to what you guys have built there? Again, which sounds like really great teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. It started because about a year ago, all of the department heads collectively realized that we were pretty siloed. And that felt ridiculous. We're a 25-person company, and somehow we've managed to already silo ourselves. So the very first thing that we all decided to do in our leadership team meeting one day was set up weekly check-ins with every other department head. So as a group, we come together with the CEO for our leadership team meeting. But then every week I also meet with each of the department heads individually, and we talk about different priorities. Sometimes we just chat and catch up on what's going on in our lives. But that was the first step, was just helping us get to know one another. And I wouldn't say that there was a lack of trust to begin with, but there was definitely a lack of visibility into what the other teams were doing. And so simply gaining that awareness into how our head of product is thinking and what kinds of initiatives she's working on, what kind of research she's planning, that really helped lay the foundation And then after we had done that for several months, it started to become obvious to us that department-specific goals on their own weren't going to be enough to get us where we needed and wanted to go as a company. So that was where this idea of building out cross-departmental operations came from. And instead of trying to, like sales owns this and marketing owns this and, content owns this, we just decided, okay, what are the most important things we need to do as a company? Just the 2 or 3 things. And who within our company can contribute to that, who makes sense to lead the effort, and started organizing that way as opposed to each department going away and coming up with their own priorities.
Okay. That's gold. That's so good. I mean, I just, again, it's like the unity that comes when it's like, well, we're all really going for the same thing, within the company. So, but then why do we all have to have, which I understand, following and having that, but I think that there's a lot to be said when, like you said, you can check in, what the other departments are doing, and you're all still going to the same goal. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it really, it's easier to do with a small company and with a group of people who are really willing to set aside their departmental identities. I could see it being more challenging at a place that's larger, has a lot more, longevity and structure in place than we do at JHANA, or more bureaucracy. So, I mean, the best advice I could offer to someone in that situation would be to just start with those weekly meetings, and then see what comes of it. Your solution, for breaking down silos might very well wind up being different from my solution. But it does start with getting to know the other leaders at your company, building trust with them, and figuring out where your goals overlap and how you can work together to meet them.
Yeah, I know, and I love asking this question to different guests. What do you see for the future of marketing? And, let's say 3 or 5 years down the line, what do you see that could be different?
Ooh, that's a big question. I'm going to speak specifically to B2B marketing because that is my specialty. And I'm not as well versed, and there's just some crazy technology happening on the consumer side. So for B2B, what I'm starting to see is, I think, what can I say? It's like, well, duh, we're going to have more technology, duh, we're going to have more change. I'm seeing a lot of promise in this idea of marketing and sales teams operating more as a unit with a single mission. So I'll get an example. When I first started at JHANA and wanted to try and, my focus was trying to generate more leads for the sales team. And so I thought about, okay, we've got our database and I need to get some marketing automation technology in here and then I'll run some programs. And that's usually how I see departments operating, where marketing departments run programs in parallel to their sales and business development teams. So you've got marketing running some programs, and you've got business development doing some prospecting, and you've got the AEs running their deals, and everyone's just kind of operating and doing their things. And the truth is that didn't work very well at all for JHANA. Part of that is that we have a really focused market, and it's pretty targeted, so there's only so many times you can run marketing programs to someone without having them run into some, business development prospecting as well. So when we started to rethink, well, how can we go after these people in a more unified way? How can we work with the BDRs to develop programs specifically for their targeted accounts? How can we take a look at the sales funnel with the account executives and help them, create some content for a specific phase in the sales cycle that we know deals tend to fall off? So I would predict that more marketing teams are going to start taking that approach. For us, it's been a lot more effective and a lot more fun, too, because then, again, you're not working towards your own department goals. You're working towards something that is for your entire company, and that sense of teamwork and purpose is much, much stronger.
That's great. I just love hearing your thought process and how you essentially tie together those pieces. That's, I don't know, it's just really interesting. So I've definitely learned a lot today. Thanks for Robin for being here. As we start to close out, so I definitely want to be sensitive to your time as well. What would you, in terms of just parting words with the audience, last bits of advice, what would you want to share with the audience, as well as how they can find you or reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation or engage in, further discussions with you?
Oh, sure. So the easiest way to find me is just look me up on LinkedIn. You'll have my last name is spelled kind of funny, but you'll see it in the podcast. So if you just Google me or search for me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, I'll come up. Feel free to connect. And then in terms of parting words, I guess a lot of the things that I'm describing, like I can see how, especially like if I look back at companies I've worked at that were a lot more dysfunctional, but the kinds of collaboration that I'm describing now, it might feel like it's impossible. And the hard truth is, frankly, at your company, it might be impossible to get to this same level that we're able to achieve at a very small company like JHANA with a very specific culture. But that doesn't mean you can't make a lot of progress. And it really, it just starts with that one weekly meeting. You have to be willing to talk to people. If there's only one thing that you take away from this discussion to improve your sales and marketing alignment, you just have to talk to people, and a lot of good stuff will come out of that.
Absolutely. Well, Robin, that was this whole discussion has just been really interesting. I am very thankful that you were able to join us today. This was great.
As am I. I had a good time.
Well, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Definitely reach out to Robin to, follow her, check her out on social media, and engage further with her. But thanks again for tuning in, you guys. Until next time, remember, a good boss is a good leader. Let's go out there, serve our gift to the world, because you're the boss. Take care, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to the Marketing Boss Podcast with your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton. We'll catch you next time.